Hi, coaches. I'm very excited to have Coach Don Showalter here with me. Hello, Coach.
How are you?
Good, good, good. So, how about you start off and tell us about yourself, your background to people who might have heard of you?
Um, yeah, it's I'm starting my 42nd year of being a high school coach here in Iowa, and I'm just taking over a relatively new program here in the last couple years at Iowa City High. So we're trying to get that going. I've been part of USA basketball for actually since 1998 with the Hoop Summit. I coached in that, and then I've been the national team coach since 2009, having coached our younger, really good younger players with USA basketball since 2009. So I've had a lot to do with basketball. I have a passion for it, obviously, and it's one of those things where I just as any coach does, if you enjoy what you're doing, it certainly makes the job much more fun.
Awesome. Obviously, you missed out how many gold medals you've won in the past, but check that out. You'll find it online. There's a lot of great information there. So let's get straight to the point.
Okay.
I've watched a lot of your DVDs, a lot of your clinics. You always say, hey, high school coaches, who only has 2 weeks to prepare, raise your hand. So my question is, I'm in the same boat. How do you use those first 2 weeks, 10 days before your first game?
Yeah, that's real critical. I think even with our USA basketball team, we only have 2 weeks of preparation before we go play international competition. So very similar to what our high school season is like. We start practice this coming Monday with our high school season, and have 2 weeks before our first game. So I think you really got to be organized in your practice sessions. I think one of the things I always tell coaches is you're not going to be able to do everything you want to do. You're going to have to pick out 2 or 3 really key things that you want to concentrate on that first week or two, and then with your team, and then really work on that. Obviously, we press a lot, so we put our press in from day one, and it's a very simple defensive system that we use both USA basketball and our high school team. So we put it in. We show it as a whole. We always teach whole, and then we break it down into parts and we put it back together as a whole. So I think that's really a key for the teaching standpoint for coaches, young coaches who are just starting out, and even veteran coaches, to get reminded that you show everything first, and then so the players can see what they're working toward, and then you break it down, and then you put it back together again. So first 2 weeks are really spent, about half the practices are spent, a 2-hour practice, about half of it spent on fundamental skill work, and about half of it spent on team organization with defense and offense.
Yeah, and I'm trying to implement your system with my team this year, and I loved it because you start with the really, really basics. You start with mass defensive just slide, just making sure left foot first and then push off, and then you slowly build up with the drill that all the players hate, like the full court slide.
Yep.
And that's amazing. You start really small,
Yep.
and then you build up big time.
Yep. And again, it's the same thing we do with not only with our high school team, and our junior high system uses it, but also with the really good USA players who are going to be NBA players soon. I think it's really important that especially our USA players, they understand that they're so athletic, and many times they don't have to really do the skill work. But at some point, the athleticism is going to catch up with each other, and then it's going to be a matter of who has the best skill work.
Well, that's really interesting because I thought with the USA team, you skip the fundamental part and just goes to the really high level stuff. Apparently not.
No, not at all. Obviously they catch on a little bit quicker, maybe with some of the things that we do from the team standpoint, so we can move a little quicker, faster with them. But we still do the same, the very same kind of drills we do with our high school team the first couple weeks of practice.
Okay, so my next question is this. So let's say the first 2 weeks you focus on implementing the defense. Now, I know you're famous for your ball screen offense as well. When you start introducing that, and then later on in the season, mid-season, late season, like for your high school team, let's not go to USA team. How much
Right.
time do you spend on player development? How do you allocate your time?
Yeah. Excuse me. That's a great question that I get all the time. I think what you need to do is, I think as a coach needs to do is you need to carve out some time, and I call it team skill development. And there's a little bit of a difference between individual skill development and team skill development. You get a lot of individual skill development within the teamwork. So our team drills are geared toward individual skill development. And even as the season goes on, I think we've been very successful late season teams in the late season and I think one of the reasons for that is because we have not backed off our fundamental skill work. We still do that as the season goes on, where I think a lot of coaches and a lot of programs, as the season goes on, they tend to not do as much skill work and only focus on sets or team offensive, defensive stuff. But I think as the season goes on, it's really important that both parts still need to get focused on. And I would say this about developing a high school team. It takes about 20 days to develop a habit. So I think if you're going to get good habits, I think you have to keep repetition. It's part of repetition, but those repetitions can be done in different ways. And I think as we try and do, keep it fresh, not only with our ball handling drills, with our passing, with shooting drills. We try and keep it fresh for the players so that they get the best out of it.
Yeah, so can you elaborate more on the team skill development drills? Can you give me
Right.
one or two examples?
Yeah. So, for instance, if we're working on ball handling, what we'll do is we'll work out of line drills. So we have 3 or 4 people in each line, and we're working on our left-hand passing together out of those line drills. So you're still developing your weak hand drill, but we're doing it in a team setting. Same with catching the ball at the wing and squaring up. We're doing it out of a team setting, so we have one guy go through it and keep going through, where we have everybody do that team skill. So individual skills might be working on just one player at a time. Team skills, we're working on that same skill with 5, 6, 7 players.
All right. So I'm just overarching question is, how come you love your full court press and your ball screen offense so much? Why have you set on using this system of yours?
That's that's a great question, because I think over time you kind of develop what works for you as a coach, and I think skill-wise, we've always had teams that were pretty good pressing teams, not necessarily the fastest or the quickest or the biggest, but they really just did a really good job of fundamentally using a press to enable them to play at a high level. Now, that press may take different forms. It may take a full court, it may take a 3/4 court, it may take a half court press. So depending on the kind of team we have, we do different levels of pressing as well. And we really work on going from a full to a 3/4 to a half court type of press. So I think for me, we found a system that has been really good for us no matter really what kind of team we have. One year it might be a better full court team. Next year it might be a better 3/4 court team. But we always find a niche that we can use for our press action with our system. And I think that's one of the reasons I like our system so much, is that our kids enjoy it. They're used to it. The slides, the presses actually are the same presses no matter where we press at, full, 3/4, or half. They have the same rotations in it. So it's not completely new presses. It's just a different point of start.
Awesome.
And then, of course, the ball screen offense is something very simple. Our junior high team used it, as well as all the way up through USA basketball and our high school team. The ball screen offense has been really good for us. We've done some different things out of that. We'll do some drag screens out of it. As the season goes on, we will add some stuff to that, especially with our varsity team. But for younger teams, it's really an easy concept. You get a lot of good out of that ball screen with the younger players as well. So it teaches them how to use it.
Now, I know at the clinics you show a love for the junior high coaches, and
Yep.
I'm curious, do you actually talk to your junior high coach and say, hey, I want this program to, like, when you develop them and then when they give you the players, they're ready for your system? Or is there like continuity in the training?
Yeah, I think when I first took the job at this school, which was we needed to kind of overhaul the whole system, junior high, high school. One of the things that we did is we put in a lot of the same things we do at the high school level with our junior high level. And so our junior high coaches run a ball screen offense. They run some presses. So the kids are somewhat familiar with what we want to do as they get older at the varsity level. And I think that's been a real plus. So any coaches that are out there that are listening, if you're in a situation where you're trying to build a program, I think you do that. You start with your junior high program. A great example for us is our first eighth grade group that I had the first year I was at City High. By the time they got to be sophomores, 3 of those started for us on varsity. So it was just a piece or a program where we got those guys going at that age, and so by the time they got 2 or 3 years later, they were ready for the varsity basketball, which is what you want in a development program.
Okay, so that leads me to another point, because you mentioned like 10 mistakes coaches makes, and one of them is, I do it all the time, is I fall in love with drills and I try all these different things, but
Yep.
they don't tie in with what we're trying to do. So how do you prevent your junior coaches who want to try new stuff all the time to stick with the program?
Well, especially with today's day and age with media, I mean, you can pull up any kind of drills you want to on the internet. You can pull up all kinds of drills that you want. You go to clinics, you get drills. I think you really got to be focused in on what kind of drills help your team out. I mean, if we're not, if we're, for example, if we run a ball screen offense, we're going to do most of our shooting work and our footwork on setting screens, reading screens, coming off of screens, as opposed to screening away. So we're not going to do a lot of work on passing and screening away and working on curl cuts and stuff like that. We still do, but that's not our main emphasis. Because of our offense, we want to really work on our ball screens and recognizing what we can get out of our ball screens. So your drills have to relate to really what you're doing. There's a lot of great drills out there, tremendous drills, and if they don't relate to what you're doing, if you're a pressing team, you really want to do some. You get into a full court action with your defense, so you really want to do more probably full court drills with your defense, and you do want to do half court drills. And so that's a real key. I think too many young coaches will find this drill. Hey, this is a great drill. We're going to do it, and it really has nothing to do with or little to do with what they want to do with their team wise. So that's a big thing for me. I think just drills are good, but they have to relate to what you're doing as a team.
So how often do you try new stuff and incorporate new drills, or like what's the mix like?
Yeah, I think as here we always have especially the first 2 weeks is pretty standard. I mean, we have things that we have to do and get done. I think as the season goes on, you're always looking for new ways to kind of implement maybe some footwork drills, sideline to sideline drills, some new pressing type of drills, tip from behind drills, just to freshen it up every day. I think that's really important for the kids to so that they understand there's a lot of different ways that you can work on a press or work on your defense with various drills. And to tell you the truth, most of the drills I have are ones I just make up. I sit down and say, here, this would be a good drill for what we want to do. And so we'll set it up in a 3 or 4 man drill and go from there. I think also sometimes you, as a coach, I think we try and give the players way too much information. we talk too much as coaches. I want the players to kind of figure it out themselves.
Right.
A lot of the questions I have, I call them what if questions. Well, you're working on our press or defense or offense. Well, what if this guy does this? And, my response is, well, figure it out. You're out on the floor. This is what we're practicing for. Now let's, you figure it out and we'll see what happens on it. So I think that's a lot of that really, and that helps the player more than if you say, than if you tell him it's got to be this way every time, because as we know, it's not going to be the same thing every time.
Yeah. So seriously, because I talk too much today because I try to teach them the full court press and everything. It's like there's a million things you have to teach them, right?
Right.
And so I guess I just should let them figure it out first and then add it in later.
Yeah, and I think as you go, that's a good point. And a lot of times players will figure it out, and that helps their communication with each other too. I think they'll communicate with each other about, hey, if they have a guy in the middle, I'll take the middle, you take the sideline or whatever. So a lot of times I just say, you guys figure it out. What's the best way to cover this?
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to lead to some other points later, but like my question now is, most coaches, when they start off, they become an assistant coach. And
right.
I know in one of your clinics, you love assistant coaches, and you said make good use of them. But I want you to elaborate more. Like, if I'm an assistant coach, what can I do to help you as a head coach?
First of all, don't be a yes guy.
Oh.
I think I want my assistants. I have two really good assistants. They understand that they can give me feedback all the time during a game or practice. But also they understand that I have to make the final decision. So it might be something that one of my assistants is always in charge of my perimeter players, one's in charge of my post players. So they pretty much have a free handle on substituting at those areas as well. So I give them a lot of freedom as far as, if you think Johnny should be out because he's not doing a good job point guard, then they would substitute for Johnny. So there's a lot of freedom I give my assistants, but I don't want them to be a yes person. I want them to be somebody that challenges maybe me a little bit as far as why we're doing things, but be very loyal as it goes on. I mean, I got two guys that are really, really loyal to what our system is, what we're doing. I think that's extremely, extremely important. Even though they may not agree with everything I do, or they may not agree with what I'm doing as far as maybe offense or defense a little bit, but they're loyal to what we do. And if the players see that the coaching staff is all on one page, I think that makes a huge difference. But I also think it's good for the players to see that the assistants have a lot of say in the program, because I think that opens up the communication for the players and also to have a little bit of some say in the program. So if they see my assistants and me talking about whether it be a piece of our press or whether it be a part of our offense, I think it does well for the team to see that the coaches are having a discussion on this as well. So it can open up the communication between the players and the coaching staff. And the last thing is my assistants are really a good buffer between the players and myself, because there are times we can't all three of us have the same kind of personalities or same kind of role on the team. The head coach kind of has to be. Sometimes he has to come down hard on the players, and then I think the assistants they're right there to pick them back up, and that makes it really a good combination when you have this. And a lot of times the players feel they go to the assistant coaches if they have a problem with something. They may feel a little more comfortable going to the assistant coaches with that too. So I think that's a really, really important position. And I think it takes several years to get where the head coach and assistant coaches are really working well together and they know what each other wants. Now when I get my assistants, when they have something they want to go through, I think they already know the answer, but they want to make sure that I have the options, and I like that.
Awesome. So an interesting point I picked up is that no, a lot of coaches they start small and then they want to progress, junior high, varsity head coach, and then they want to go to college. That's their dream. But you specifically said you like being a high school coach. I mean, with your caliber today, you can go on and progress. Why do you choose high school specifically?
Yeah, I get asked that question a lot. There's a lot of things I think that we, as coaches, and we look at that seems a lot greener on the other side of the fence. And as a young coach, I really wanted to get into the college coaching part to it, and I think that was one of my goals, and maybe then to the NBA if it led there. But I think the more I coached and the more I was around the college game, the less I liked things that were going on with it. I'm a real family person, oriented person with two young kids growing up when I was a young coach. The college life and the college coaching on the road all the time was not something that I really envisioned that I like to do. And when I think there's a lot of things that you realize how good you have it when you look at my buddies what got into college coaching, and they would work for a volunteer coach for 2 or 3 years. The head coach gets fired. Now they're back on the trail looking for another job, and now they're selling insurance or whatever. So they're out of the things they really love to do. And I think that really drove me to say, you know what, I'm here. I like what I'm doing. I love what I'm doing. I can teach. Too many times I think you get to the next level, it's not really about basketball. It's about recruiting. It's about everything else. You really don't get a coach. And I know I would miss that part of it immensely if I couldn't actually be on the floor coaching kids. So, I've had ample opportunities to look at that or to be a scout, with an NBA team, and I'm just not. It takes away from my coaching, and that's what I love to do. And I think on the days at the end of the day, that was what was best for me.
That is very, very inspiring. So that leads me to the very, very important question, which is, you got to where you are because you kept improving your craft.
Yeah.
And I know that's a point you stress out a lot. So what advice do you have for new coaches on how to improve your craft? Is it going to watch other people's practices, or what is the big things that you need to do as a beginner coach?
Well, coaches, I get a lot of questions on, how can I get, I'm a junior high coach. How can I get a head varsity coach or assistant varsity coach? Or I'm a high school coach. How do I get to a college level? Or, I get those questions all the time. And my first response is, do a great job of where you're at. I mean, don't always be thinking that you want to be somewhere else. I mean, you're at that spot right now. So do a great job with your junior high team, with your JV team, be an assistant coach. Because once you have that mentality, I'm going to do a great job where I'm at, then I think other things fall in place. And that's kind of where really I look back on my career, and that's kind of what propelled me, to do things with high school and USA basketball. It was just that, I really focused on where I was at the moment and tried to do a great job there. And it's not all about wins and losses. I mean, I think everybody thinks that you have to win a lot of games in order to, advance to another level or to be recognized. And that's not necessarily true. I tell coaches all the time, just, do the best job you can. The old saying goes, win the day. And we tell our players that all the time, hey, let's just win today. And I think that's a great saying for coaches. Do the best job you can where you're at. And then I think as coaches get to improve their craft, I think it's really important that I call it FaceTime, just like you and I are having FaceTime. But I tell young coaches, you need to get FaceTime. Whether it be go to clinics, go to college, go to college practices, go to other high school practices. I think that's really important that if you want to maybe advance or you want to get better at your profession, you need to have a lot of FaceTime where people recognize you, they might not recognize or remember your name, but they recognize, yeah, you were at this clinic, I met you at this clinic, or whatever. So I think that's really important that you do those things. Camps in summertime are huge. They were great. They were really huge for me. And, we have a 5-session camp here in Iowa now in the summertime that we run about 1,500 kids through. And we have we hire about 70 coaches per week. And so through that, you make, you build friendships, with other coaches, and that really, is something I think young coaches or any coaches really need to do, to develop their craft, to keep improving.
Okay, so I'll lead to another point which I find very, very inspiring too, because all our partners, we ask them to give us your practice plan, and then they say, oh, yeah, I'll have it, and then they just scramble and put everything together. But you are the most prepared coach I've seen, because instantly you have all the practices recorded, you have all the practice plans ready with everything to the T, to the minute, and you're really prepared. So why is that? Why are you so organized, and how is that important?
I think it's personality a little bit, for me. I mean, I don't want to go, and I never want to go into practice feeling unprepared. And so I'm a big stickler on, I want the players to feel prepared, so I want to be prepared as a coach. I put a lot of planning into my practices, and I think one of the things that, for me, that kind of highlighted all this, I worked Coach Wooden's camps for about 20 years in California, and he was such a stickler on organization and practice planning and those kind of things. So that really stuck with me, from that standpoint. And I think you get obviously more done if you're organized with your practices to the minute. I think your players develop more because you know what you want to do and you know what you want to get out of your team. So just for young coaches, I think organization is a huge factor, to development of your players and development of your team.
Yeah, so for all the viewers who hasn't seen it yet, you can get an app, but I gotta say the practice plans have a quote. Who's working who at what position is the most detailed plan I've ever seen. So you can get all that and all the practices and the drills inside the Coach Base app. So we're gonna end it there. So thank you very much, Coach. That was a great talk.
I really appreciate all you're doing for basketball. I think it takes, you're doing things the right way, and I hope that people that go on your app, I know they're going to get a lot out of it, because you have a passion for what you're doing, obviously, and I think that carries over to coaches who are going to watch and go along with what you do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.